Well, I think I got an email or a phone call from Siri, and then I checked who she was. I reached out to my contacts. Said, "Do you know this lady who is inviting me?" And everybody had wonderful, glowing things to say, and that's why I'm here, because they said it was cool, and then we had a conversation, and she's incredible. I heard it yesterday night was amazing, and I cannot wait to see what God does. I'm going to ask you to please tune in. It's very easy to miss out on God. It's very easy. Very, very easy. It's very easy to... I cannot wait to answer the question that the lady has. Can I just answer it now? It's just a very fun question to answer. Let's just answer it. About discernment having an expiry date per se. Who asked the question? Somebody there. There we go. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So that's a great question. Most people don't understand that obedience has an expiry date. Yeah. So when it comes to things of the Spirit, it's about, there's an agenda. There's an agenda. God has an agenda. And the way he incorporates us into his agenda is through instruction. The way he blesses us is through obedience. So what he does to release a blessing upon us, he gives us an opportunity to obey. And to obey, he gives us instructions. So if God, let's say God wants to build a church in Austin by 2027, he begins to work on people here, begins to work on your heart. And anything that will stop him from doing it in 2027, he will move away from and find somebody until he finds somebody who is able to do it. Most times when we see people, okay, this is not my list, right there already, you know what I mean? When we see people have like overnight influence, it's usually because over the course of time, some people did not obey. So God found the one person who is going to obey and accelerated their influence to catch up with where things are supposed to be. Usually, that's what's happening. So yes, go to Matthew chapter 26. You see that Jesus takes 3 disciples to pray at the foot of Mount Gethsemane, and he tells them, hey, pray with me. Let me go further, pray. He prays, comes back. They are sleeping. He says, can't you pray with me for 1 hour? They stand up, they shake their heads. They're ready to do it again. He goes, they sleep again. Does that. On the 3rd time, he comes back and he says this to them. Never mind. It's okay. My betrayer is here. My hour has come. That means the time we had to influence what God wanted to do has passed. There's no need. Just stop praying. Stand up. Let's go. It's done. What is going to happen is going to happen. So anytime, I don't know if it's happened to you in a season where God tries to wake you up by 3 or 4 a.m. to pray, you know what I mean? And then we fight it and fight it and fight it. And then he stops. Because the season to influence what he was getting you to influence has passed. It's going to happen. Do you understand? That's it's very easy to miss God. Okay, I didn't want to extend it. So yes, expiry date. Yes, so there's an expiry date. That's why you obey when quickly and quietly. Don't argue, just obey. As quickly as you can. The difficulty is that we don't ask God for grace to obey. God gives us an instruction and we don't go back to him and get the power to do what he wants. Nothing God is going to ask you to do can be executed outside of him. So he's going to give you something to do that needs you to come back. You know what I'm trying to say? It needs you to come back. Did that help you, ma'am? Did that help you? Did it? Yeah. Feel free. That's why we're here. Yes. 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 Quite. Yes. Yes. That's like, how do I put it? You have to say everything in the Spirit is not zeros and ones. It's in grades. That's why you have the fullness of the Spirit. You see how the Bible says we're given Spirit in measures, but then there's the fullness of the Spirit. So yes, he received a blessing for obeying, but you can talk yourself out of your reward. I literally have somebody who spoke at our church, and she has this complex of, oh my God, I'm a horrible speaker. Did I do well? I don't think I did well. They were not smiling. They were not talking about that. I say, stop talking. You're going to... I say, the people are going to be impacted. You're going to get the benefits of God using them. using you to bless them, but you're going to lose out on the reward of being used by God. So you can talk yourself out of the fullness of what you should have. So yes, you get a blessing because you obey. Obedience triggers. But the fullness of the blessing comes in quickness, very quick, and complete obedience. Complete. Do everything you were told, whether you understand it or not. Just do what God says you should do and move on. Does that help? Absolutely. Awesome. Yes. Okay, so let's go. I've spent almost all the time. Okay. It's going to be fun when we have Q&A. So this morning, I want to answer some questions. We're going to talk about a few things before I go. Our lives, look at your life like let's say like a block. There are 4 corners, 4 pillars that hold up your life. And we're going to walk through 2 lists of 4s, and then we're going to end the conversation. The first thing, how to build your life. Your life is built on 4 pillars. The first one is your closeness to God. The first C is your closeness to God. What does that look like? It's your relationship with God. It's your commitment to put God as number 1 in your life. That's the first building block. Everything you do in your life as a Christian, as a Christ follower, begins with your closeness to God. The second thing, it's your character. Your character is the manifestation of your relationship with God. Your relationship with God has to affect your value system. It has to affect the way you conduct yourself. I hope you're taking notes because it's going to be relevant. Please do. It has to affect the way you live your life, the way you make your decisions. Anytime you try to be a good person without a relationship with God, you slide into morality. Morality and expression of your divine nature can look alike. But one of them has power, the other one does not. One of them is transformative, the other one is not. So anytime you try to be a good person, good teacher, what good things must I do to be saved? Jesus says, why are you calling me good? There is only one good person who has a good nature. He is the good God. Partake of his nature, and you're not looking for a checklist of being good. You become good. So apple trees don't have a checklist to produce apples. By their nature, they produce apples. So what you want to do in your closeness with God is partake of the divine nature of God, and you will naturally produce fruit. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? The best way to break an addiction is to partake of the divine nature of God. Now, this is what laying on of hands does for you. It opens the prison doors. So the doors are open, but you can leave your way back into jail. Somebody can pray for you and you get your healing. And that sickness can come back again because the words of your mouth and the meditations of your heart are not pleasing. So anytime you get a healing, this is just, I'm going to be all over the place, but anytime you get a healing, give yourself 1 or 2, 3 days, you're going to feel a symptom. Your head will just be like, oh, little headache. It's real. Or let's say it was your leg. You just feel, oh, pain. If you entertain the thoughts, the devil's playground is as big as your ignorance. His playground, the amount of latitude he has in your life is as big as your ignorance. That's why you read your Bible. That's why you want to know the truth. That's why the first building block is your closeness with God. You have a routine. I'm going to get there. You have a routine to get close to God. So the next one is your character. You want to make sure that your character is born out of your relationship with God. Number 3 is your calling. So closeness with God, your character, your calling. Your calling is how God impacts other people through you. So your character is the manifestation of your relationship with God. Your calling is how God serves and influences other people through you. Now, this is the danger of skipping a relationship with God skipping character. When you see pastors, be like, oh, this pastor did this, and you're like, why is God still using them? That's not fair. I don't understand. Why? Let me tell you why God is still using them. Being used by God is principally about availability. And it's not the availability you think. It's not because I'm available to God. It's I'm available in this space. God can use anybody. Cyprus, a king, was a horrible king. And God said, I will hold him by my hand and I will lead him. Why? He's available to do what I want to do. I will use Egypt to make Israel a nation. I will harden his heart and make him a nation. Big example is the donkey. Balaam goes to prophesy against the children of Israel, bribed and everything. The donkey talks clearly to a human being. Comprehends, not only talks, but understands. So this donkey, let me give you the level of spirituality that most of us have not attained, that this donkey attained. The donkey could see angels. Have you seen angels? The donkey could see angels. So there was a dimension of the spirit he walked in. His eyes were opened enough, its eyes were open enough to see angels. And then had the cognitive ability to respond to what he saw in the spirit. The cognitive understanding to know that what I'm seeing in the spirit has physical ramifications. If I keep going, this guy is going to kill us. Even though this man or me cannot see him, what I see in the spirit has physical manifestations enough to cause physical death. That is a level of comprehension that even I sometimes do not have. That donkey could comprehend. And then goes on to communicate things of the spirit in a way a prophet could understand. Do you understand the level this donkey was operating on? Next level animal stuff here. Guess what happens when God finished using the animal? It went back to be an animal. God can use you to do mighty things, and it will not change you. Being used by God is not a sign of spiritual maturity. That's why it's not a sign. Although it's more frequent, the more mature you are. You know what I mean? But it's not a sign. It's not a telltale sign of spiritual maturity. Being used by God is not a telltale sign of spiritual. That's why it's called gifts of the Spirit. I give it to you for a specific time and place. Now, when you have somebody walk in a particular gift consistently, it's because they've made themselves, like Minister Itoro said. Oh, is it Minister Itoro? I want to do Minister Itoro. I'll make sure I don't. That's because you've obeyed consistently to the point that the use is so many dots in succession that it feels like a line. So this person is prophetic. It's because you've obeyed. And it feels like a line. Like, oh, you're prophetic. So don't be, when I say calling, oh, what am I called? Ministry am I called into? No. What have I been called to do? Not title, not position. What instruction has God given me that I should obey? That's it. Obedience. That's it. Obedience has me here. And when I came in here, I knew where I was supposed to be here. God has me on a tour that I did not plan for a particular group of people that I was like, oh, that's why I'm here. I'm missing a Sunday service to be here. I don't leave my church on Sunday. You're probably like the first person to take me out of my church on a Sunday. Yeah. Yeah, so God must love you guys. Don't mind me. But seriously, so your calling, those gifts, those being used by God, don't be that donkey that God can use to do great things and he doesn't do anything in your life. When you're serving other people, it passes through you. The mistake a pipe will think is that it is a container because there's a flow in it. The moment the tap is shut off, you become empty. God never called us to pour out. God called us to overflow. The only time you pour out is when you sacrifice. You only pour out to God. You're not supposed to pour out to other people. Other people are supposed to drink from out of your belly. Your belly is full. And then you overflow. Calling. Number 4, competence. Competence is what determines how God will use you, where God will use you. Let's give a good example. Peter and Paul. Peter is a fisherman, brilliant guy, preached the first message post Pentecost. Amazing. 3,000 people killed it. That's history. Read Acts chapter 2. Summarize the entire Bible in one speech. Very few people can do that. Great. But when it was time to talk to kings, God had to arrest Saul. Because fishermen don't know how to talk to kings. They don't have the level of finesse necessary. He got a philosopher, Paul, and Saul is the only one that stood before kings. Others did few, but between Peter and Paul, the one that had the competency to stand before King Agrippa was Paul, because he had refined his calling to that degree. Little wonder he's the one that God used to capture 2/3 of the New Testament, because he could write, he could articulate. It's one thing to get a vision of heaven. It's another thing to articulate what you have gotten that in such a way that it can last for generations. That's competence. Joseph, if you look through his life, you see all the closeness with God. He said, the Bible says, and Potiphar saw that the Lord was with him. The Lord was with him. That's closeness with God. His character, the lady, Potiphar's wife, tried to sleep with him, and he said, I don't want to do this wicked thing to God. Not to, your husband has kept everything under me. It's wonderful, but I cannot do this wicked thing to God. Because that's an outflow of his closeness with God, his relationship with God. And then his calling, he gets into jail, and he sees people who are sad, and he wants to serve. So most of us want the title, I'm to a prophet, because he prophesied 1 or 2, 3 times, like Mr. Torres said, now you're a prophet. Sit down somewhere, you know what I mean? Sit down. You're not, even to teach. Bible says Apollos taught with such confidence. And then 2 members, lay leaders in the church, heard him speak. I was like, oh, he spoke with such authority, such boldness, but he was speaking incomplete truth. They called him, sat him down, and they taught him, and he went and preached in a more excellent way. So it's not just about the prophetic, it's about the teach, about anything God calls you to do. You want to make sure that your competence is good. So he sees these 2 people, and he serves them. He says, hey, you're sad. Now, just imagine, we are all prisoners. We all have reasons why we should be upset. Why to have the latitude to go past my own problems and pay attention to you and have the latitude to help you shows a level of maturity that most of us do not have. It's in those margins that God uses you. You hear God in the margins of your life. God uses you also in the margins of your life. So if you cannot download the instruction, you cannot obey, then you're useless to God. But you need the latitude. He has issues. He was falsely accused. He was falsely accused by another woman for not doing something. You know, at some point you'll be in the prison, you'll be like, I should have just done this thing. Now, let it be that I'm in jail for doing something. You know what I mean? But he's not. He's still calm. He has leadership responsibilities, because once he comes in, the jail looks like him like, this guy, things seem to work when you're around. You know, when he just run, he's a prisoner, run the entire thing. So not only is he dealing with his own issues, with the false accusation, dealing with the fact that, God, you gave me a dream for leadership, I'm in jail, dealing with his leadership responsibilities in the jail, he still has the latitude to notice that other people are sad and not assume they are sad for the same reasons he's sad. Because we're all in jail. He asked the question, then he realized, oh, I have a unique set of skills that can help you. And it is the serving that puts him in the mind of the butler when Pharaoh had a dream. It's your serving. And he goes in front of Pharaoh, and Pharaoh says, after he explains the dream and everything, Pharaoh says, there's none more wise and more discerning. That's competence. Nobody can execute what you have just said except you. When you go to your job, your relationship with God must eventually reflect in competence. Being amazing at what you do. I'm going for a preaching masterclass next month. And one of my friends was like, Pastor Vic, you don't need a preaching masterclass. You know how to preach. I said, for where I am speaking, I know how to speak. Do you know how good I know God sees my speaking? The rooms he puts me in. There's some rooms I want to be in. And the fact that God has not given me that access means he must not see me as a vessel of gold. Yet. Come March, though. I'll be bloody, you know what I'm trying to say. But that's competence. I want to go and make sure my tools are sharp. So, just going to pick one of those four, talk about how to build a relationship with God. This principle I'm going to give you is how to build any relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, this is like a quick mini relationship seminar. How to fall in love with someone. You ready? Let me teach you how to fall in love with someone. There are 4 parameters to satisfy to say you're in love with someone. Frequency, duration, proximity, duration, and intensity. Frequency, proximity, duration. I'm going to play it out in physical relationships, talk about it with God, then we have questions. If you meet somebody on Tinder, Bumble, Bees, keep doing like that. I have 2 couples who are married in my church now. They met on Tinder. Great guy, by the way. I didn't believe they met on Tinder. They were in my church, but they met on Tinder. You connect with this person, and then you begin to talk every day. It goes from once every week to twice, thrice, every day, 4 times a day, 5 times a day. And I'm trying to say, frequently you're talking with them regularly, texting back and forth. Hey, I'm leaving for work. Hey, I'm in the car. Hey, I just started the car. Hey. Don't laugh. Most of you do that. Like, you might as well just put on FaceTime and just have the person watch you live your life. But you're frequently having interaction with them. Back and forth, you're frequently having interaction with them. Then, proximity, you get to see them. You have a day to see them. You like their company. You had fun. Incredible. Then it moves from once, twice a month to every Friday. Maybe he or she drops by. We begin to dial up proximity, physical proximity. And then what used to be 2-minute conversations, 3-minute conversations begin to go to hours. You begin to sleep on the phone and wake up. Just talking and talking and talking. No more just frequency, but now duration in the frequency. You're talking, you know what I mean? And then you meet, and then you guys are laughing really hard, and it's intense, and oh my God. Then you look at his eyes, he looks at your eyes, and you want to melt. You tell him all your family secrets, the one you're supposed to say and the one you're not supposed to say. You have these deep conversations with him or her. It's incredible. Now I'm trying to say, 3 weeks later, you say you're in love with the person. 3 weeks. I know you're disputing my 3-week theory. I can prove it to you. The reason why 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years you do that is because when you get to the threshold of this 4, you will realize you're in love with this person. If you hit the right amounts of frequency, duration, proximity, and intensity, you realize you've developed an affection for this person. How do you know that? Dial down. Let's say you've been talking with someone, you guys are going out now, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, and then you don't talk to them for 6 hours. You just dial down frequency, and you hear alarm bells. Okay, what happened to you? Hey, what's going on? Are we still, I don't know, so, what is it? Oh, yeah. And all you did was just dial down. Now, that gives you the key on how to end a relationship. Dial any one of those down. You meet every Friday, and you think that's not the right circle for you. Begin to dial down. Every other, once in 3, once in 4, it will end. Those are the 4 dials in any relationship you want to keep your hands on. That's how you want to make sure also, if you want to get into a relationship with this person. Because sometimes we dabble into frequency and we don't know. You begin talking and then 2 hours and 3 hours, and then it's just, then before you know, oh my God, he broke my heart. She broke my heart. Because the heart grows around what it is associated with. I'm going to get to God. But the heart, your soul, your emotions, your will, we're not as smart as we think we are. We're not. Including me. We're not as smart. We're not that. We are very interesting creatures. Our souls hold on to, latch onto things we interact with frequently, things that give us intention. Think about it. Most of you came out of town, so you might have some friends in Austin. You may not see them, physical proximity, every day, every month. You might not. But the 3 days you guys spend together, fire. No, think about it. They come from the airport. You guys are laughing. You guys are, movies and things you don't usually do. You're thinking about, okay, what heartbreak did you have to deal with this year? What are you doing? You're making up for, with the other 3 dials, what you don't have in physical proximity. So your intensity is way up. Your duration of conversation is way up. You're staying all night and talking because you know you're not going to have this physical proximity again. Keep your hands on these 4 dials and you will never get into a relationship you did not plan to. Never. Do I want to be talking to you as often as I am? Why am I talking to you before work, after work? Why? Wait, stop. Why? Why am I doing that? Why is this conversation lasting more than 15 minutes? No, do I want it to? If I want it to, dial that sucker up. You know what I mean? If I don't want it to, hey, man, I'm busy. Can I just hop off the phone? We'll talk at some point. That's how. Now, let's take that to God. Our parents taught us morning devotions. Now, while they did not use this principle, this is what they meant: frequency. Early in the morning and night, I will seek your face. Frequency. What meditation does for you is it takes the conversation, the frequent conversation, and gives it duration. So what I gleaned in my quiet time, I'm thinking about for the rest of the day. So now I have duration. Like what Minister was saying, I'm meditating on you. Now, the reason why we fall in love with people faster than we should is because very quickly we create an image of them in our minds. And then we have frequent interactions with that image. I don't need you to fall in love with you. I don't need you. I just need one. I'm serious. Why do you think pornographic addictions are hard to break? It's that you have built a temple to that person. And now you worship in that temple. You sacrifice at that altar regularly. There might be kids here, so I will not explain what I mean by that. But it's the image of the person in your mind that you're falling in love with. That's why the version of Christ you have in your mind is important. Because frequent interaction with that version makes you more like that version. As we behold him, we are changed. The thing we're looking at does not change. It doesn't even have to be in the room. But because I'm consistently and constantly beholding it, I am changed. You can see somebody who in the first year of college, you looked at them, they were not, they're like a strong 4. Strong, very strong 4. On a good day, 4.25. You know what I mean? Good day, haircut, fade, and everything, 4.25. Let me just share this joke, and I'll come back. There was this guy that came to my church at the end of cherry, just greeted people in the lobby, blah, blah, blah. Then I saw him. I'm a guy. Guys don't tell other guys you're handsome. We don't care. You know what I'm saying? I don't care how handsome you are. I will never say. Except you go past a threshold. There's a threshold of handsomeness that you will go past that I'll be like, bro, you're handsome. Like, wow. As a guy, even, I'm just saying, hallowed be thy name. It's like... No, so I see the guy, and he just came out of my mouth. I was like, bro, wow, you're handsome. And he's like, taking a bite, because I'm a very real person. It's like, oh, this is a guy that just preached. Oh, my God, how should I feel? I say, bro, this is just who I am. You're really very handsome. You must have a good time, you know what I mean, with the ladies. And I'm just real. My point is, where was I even? My point is this. As we behold the person consistently, we are changed. That person begins to change us. So you see somebody in your first year, they're a strong 4, and then you begin to talk to them. They become a study group. You just hang out with friends, da. 3 years later, that's how the sun will hit them one day, just the right way. Just hit them. And then you just catch a glimpse. And you're like, wow. You know what I mean? That's the moment you realized what frequency and duration has done to you. You have been changed. Your perspective has been shaped by consistently beholding. How does this fit into the grand scheme? If we don't have a solid relationship with God, if we don't spend time, frequency, duration, proximity. What's proximity look like? Coming to church. You cannot physically be with God. Coming to church, being with other people that bear the image of God. Spend time with them. That's what the Bible says. Don't forsake the gathering of saints. You spend time with people who remind you of the characters of God. Intensity, that's where you're broken in worship and God begins to work on you. If that becomes your foundation, your character begins to spring up. Your calling begins to spring up. The Bible says all things work together for good. And we stop there. For those who are called according to his purpose. That means if you're not serving the purpose of God, things don't work together for your good. It works together as you serve him, not because you're recalcitrant and you want to do what you want to do. God does not split the bill with you. He does not share glory with you. Because he who takes the glory bears the responsibility. He who takes the glory determines the agenda and what is to be done. And he only, Abraham, shares what he's going to do with his friends. So step number 1 is to be a friend of God. If we get that right, it'll be easy. Hope that bless somebody. Let's take some questions.